What I'm going to show is how to put any proposition or sentence that you encounter into logical form. What that means is you're going to put any proposition or sentence you encounter into the A, E, I, or O proposition. And that is going to expose, in other words, make apparent the quality and quantity of the proposition. So we encounter, when we read things, just normal sentences that don't look like an A, I, O, or E proposition. And so we're just going to manipulate them, and we're going to add things or take out things in order to make them into one of those four propositions. So the first thing I'm going to do is, when I encounter a sentence, a normal sentence, I'm going to ask myself, and this is intuition, you're going to ask yourself, is this a E proposition, is this an O proposition, or is it an A proposition, or an I? So you're just going to ask yourself this, okay? So when I look at this, my natural instinct is that it's an A proposition because it has men right here, and we know that when we have a word in the front and there's no qualifiers already, it doesn't say few or three or two or something like this, most of the time it's going to be all. Okay, that's what's meant here, all. So I'm going to add that. So it's all men are mortal. Okay, and so with this particular sentence, I'm almost done already. Okay, I have, because if you look at it, you can already see it has the form of an A sentence, of an A proposition, because we have the all in the R. That's the form of the A proposition. Okay, all I have to do to finish this up is to put the subject term and the predicate term into brackets. So I'm going to do that. So this right here is the subject term. It's the subject term of the proposition. Why? Because it's in the subject. Okay? Subject term. The subject term can be long. It just doesn't have to be one word. If I were to say, all men who sleep a lot are mortal, then the subject term would be men who sleep a lot. Okay, so it could be more than one word. And this right here is the predicate term. That's the predicate term. Okay, so I put the subject term and the predicate term into brackets. Okay, and now I'm done. This proposition, this sentence is in logical form. I've exposed the quality and the quantity and what exactly the subject and the predicate term are. Okay, that's all you're doing when you're doing logical form. So you're putting any sentence you encounter into an E, I, or the four propositions. Why are we doing that? Because first of all, if you can't do that, then you don't fully understand the sentence or the proposition. Okay, but furthermore, we want all of the sentences we encounter, because all the sentences we do encounter, they are one of those. They're one of those four propositions. Okay, so all we're doing is identifying, and once we turn it into one of those four propositions, we're going to use that form later in order to check arguments for validity. Okay, so this is a very important step, not just to check arguments for validity, but to understand a proposition. Okay, it's good exercise to build a habit in doing this. So this was an easy proposition. Okay, we're going to go to something a little bit more difficult. So let's say I have the proposition, boys run. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my intuition with this sentence here, this proposition, and it seems to me that this could be an A proposition. Okay, so I'm going to add my quantifier all in front of boys, because what do they mean by this? What do we think they mean? The person who came up with this or wrote this down, all boys. Okay, it doesn't say 3 boys or a few boys, so if there's no other quantifier, we're just going to assume it's all. So I'm going to put all boys run. Okay, now we're not, if you notice, we have not completely turned this into an A proposition, because where is the verb are? Right? In order for it to be an A proposition in logical form, you need to be able to see that verb right here. What's the other forms of this verb? Is, or even am. Okay? So you need to be able to see one of these. We don't see it here. Okay? So I'm going to show you a very important step right now. In order that we can see that verb to be, are, or is, or am, I'm going to turn this term right here, or the predicate term, into a relative clause. Okay? So I'm just going to say the sentence very naturally at first, and I'm going to write it down. So this sentence, all boys run, can also be said, all boys are that which run. So I'm just going to write it below again. So this says all boys are that which run. So all I did was I turned this predicate term into what's known as the relative clause. Okay, how do I do that? By using that which. Alright, I just said all boys are that which run. Okay, and at first when you do this, it may seem a little difficult, but you do this all the time when you speak. Okay, so after you do it for a few times, or 20 times, 30 times, it'll be somewhat easy and simple. Okay, so what is my subject term? Remember, okay, so I got everything I need right now. This is an A proposition. Okay, it has all and then it has are. I can clearly see the form. Okay, so I'm just going to put brackets around the subject term, and then I'm going to put brackets around the predicate term. Just like that. There you go. So we see the form, which is all are, and we see boys that which run. So this whole thing right here is the predicate term, that which run. Okay, so I'm going to do one more, one that's not going to be an A proposition. So what if I have a proposition that says no boys run? No boys run. Okay. Now you're going to have to ask yourself, if you come across a proposition like this, what is it? Is it the E? Is it the I? The O? Clearly this one is an E. That is the best candidate at this point. Why? Because I see a no right here. Remember, the E proposition is no S or P. So I see the no right here, so that's what I'm going to go with. Okay, so what are we missing? So we're almost there already, because we already have a no right here. So in order to put this in logical form, which is the goal for this exercise, I need to expose the copula. I need to expose the verb to be. I need to expose the are, an is, or an am. Okay? The one that's going to work here is the are. So what am I going to do? Is I'm going to do what I just did before. Is I'm going to make that predicate term into a relative clause. A relative clause is just a big adjective. Okay, so that's all I'm doing, is I'm going to turn this into a big adjective. So no boys are that which run. That's what it's going to turn into. So No boys are, instead of writing that which, I'm going to use just a TW. Okay, so I don't have to write out that which. Sometimes if the predicate is not a verb and it's an adjective, then you're going to use that which is instead of that which, because it's just going to feel better. It's going to sound better when you say that which is. Okay, but concerning this exercise, grammatically, it's more correct to use that which is rather than that which in certain circumstances. But concerning the exercise, it doesn't really matter because I don't care about the grammar. All I care about is you're spotting the predicate term and the subject term, and that this proposition is in a logical form. Okay, but I'm just telling you sometimes, or you're going to see that sometimes there's a TWI for that which is instead of that which, because it just works better when you have an adjective as the predicate term. Okay, so finishing this one. No boys are that which run. And I'm just using TW for that which. Now all I have to do to complete the exercise of putting this into logical form is I have to put the subject term and the predicate term into brackets. Okay, I want to clearly identify what those are, because when we start testing arguments for validity, those things, we need to know what they are because they move around. So the subject term is boys, and the predicate term is that which run. Okay, so concerning all the four different types of propositions, it could be any one of those. Okay, if you encounter a sentence, it could be any one of those, the A, E, I, or O, and you have to determine which one it actually is. Okay, so for this one, it's an E proposition. It's not an O proposition or an I proposition. Okay, so you have to determine the correct proposition that the sentence you encounter, which one it is. Okay, and that's just the basics of putting something in the logical form.